We learn new things every day. You'll be learning something new here today from probably Tom and myself, and even some of the techniques that, even the one that Caleb just mentioned. So we have that ability to learn new things. Our brains are malleable, we have neuroplasticity, and we can generate new neural pathways, new networks, neurogenesis. It's just a matter of changing our default, those old unhelpful patterns, and exchanging them with new ones that would be more productive. And that's how we change and we sort things out in relationships. And they then, hopefully, are more productive. The next C is connect. And that's what we're doing here. We're trying to build relationships. When we start off in a relationship, when we connect with someone, the language that's used is more about me and you. I, mine, yours. Very singular. But as we develop that relationship and we find out we have things in common with one another, that you and me becomes ours, or we. It's more of a team mentality. And that's what we've got to nurture. And that's just the same as what we do in business. And as you know, in business, we do business with people that we know, like, and trust. So what we're trying to do here is build some connections, build up a relationship, so that we know that person and we can recommend them. Because if we're recommending their business, we're actually recommending them and their brand. You're putting your name to that person. That's about connecting. That's about building up. Now, in relationships or marriages, as routine takes hold and sameness comes into a marriage or a relationship, that's when things can get a bit bumpy and we start to take one another for granted. And then pretty soon that we, or us, that team mentality, starts to splinter and can become disconnected. And that disconnection from the we can then become the I and you again, or me and you. And if you're not careful and that divide widens, it can become me versus you. And that's when the problems start. It's working out how you can start to get back into connection and try and foster that and build and grow and change patterns, change the routine, have the date nights, find out what you like about one another, rediscover one another so you can build those strong relationships. Collaborate. When I do this exercise in the face-to-face workshops, there's an exercise that I use called the marshmallow tower. And it's a lot of fun. And what we do, we get bags of marshmallows and sticks of spaghetti, and I get couples to actually construct a marshmallow tower. Now, it's an abstract concept. But you see that when couples are in a new relationship, it's very collaborative. Like in new relationships, when we're working with someone or when we go for a coffee catch-up, how are you? What do you do? What's your kids? And what sort of hobbies do you like? And what programs do you watch on TV? And where did you come from? You get to know one another. So in a new relationship, it is very much sharing. What do you think? Yeah, what about this? Yeah, okay, let's try that. And they work together. But sometimes when you've got a relationship where they've been in it for 20, 30 or 40 years, you can get one partner, yeah, well, there's no point in me offering my opinion because I'll never listen to it. And then the other one's working, no, don't do that, and they're into it. Then after, I go and give them a questionnaire. And the questions are, is this the normal state of affairs when you come across some abstract concept? When you go and visit a new country and you're both out of your comfort zone and you're in unfamiliar surroundings, who takes over? Who's the natural leader? How do you feel about that? Do you feel heard? Is this what happens in your relationship? Is it time to change? Because if it's unhelpful and you're not in a happy relationship or a happy marriage, things have to change. And the whole idea behind this workshop is to get a stronger marriage, to build the connection up and find out what your marriage is about. The exercise itself, it could be anything, but it is something new, it's abstract, and it's a collaboration. It's two people coming together and working out how they can achieve an outcome with a different problem or challenge. Communication. It is a big part of relationships, but it's not the main issue. There are many, many issues that come up, or challenges that come up in relationships. But communication is a big piece. And often we hear, but he never listens, or she never listens. And I ask them, are you speaking the language which they can hear? Well, of course I can. Now, sometimes I may work with someone who's an academic, very technical, and I struggle sometimes to understand what they're saying. We change our language, or we should realise the type of language that our partner needs to hear us in. So we have a communicator, we have someone that's sending the message, and then there's a receiver. If you want to get that message over to that person for them to understand or act on it, then you've got to speak that language. It's very similar to the workshop that JR put on, the 5 love languages. If you're showing your partner love in one language, whether that's acts of service, if that's your love language, but their love language is receiving gifts, they can't see that you're showing them love. So it's very much in that communication model. One little tip or one technique that I use, which is very easy to remember, is a technique that was developed by a psychologist called Richard Bolton many, many years ago. It's called attending, following and reflecting. It's a little technique for listening. We've got to become better listeners. Not only in our primary relationships, but in networking, in the relationships that we build with others. To allow someone that space to step into and be heard makes them feel really good. Not for you to stand there and talk to them and tell them all about yourself and how good we are, but allowing that space to step in and listen to them. So the attending, being present, engage with them. Soft eyes, not staring. Maybe a slight head tilt, showing a little bit of vulnerability. Open, make sure your body language is congruent with what your intention is. So yes, I'm here to listen. So if you're listening to someone and you're standing there with your arms folded and there's no congruency there. That's incongruent with what you're trying to do. So soft eyes, engage with them. Maybe some head nods and okay. That's the attending, being present, engaging. The following, listen to the language, the words that they use. Listen to the pauses or the emphasis on words. Because the last part, the reflecting, is to reflect back what you've actually heard. So what you're saying is, okay, is that what I heard? So you're getting that clarification. And then they'll know that you've been listening. A little easy technique, attending, following and reflecting. 7-Eleven, not just a convenience store. Constructive conflict. Yes, you can have constructive conflict. There is such a thing. It doesn't always have to be two opponents in a ring. And a lot of times people only communicate when they're in conflict. But constructive conflict, there is such a thing. I won't go into it too much today, but there's a technique that I teach, which is very, very effective, called 7-Eleven. Now, 7-Eleven is a stress reducer, very similar to what Caleb mentioned, and from what I gather, others have cottoned onto with regards to the breathing. Because the breathing is so important, because it engages the parasympathetic part of our nervous system, as opposed to the fight or flight, which is the sympathetic part of our nervous system, which gets us all heightened up. And you've got various chemicals going through your body that put us at that heightened state. Because when we are engaging in conflict, or we know that we're going to get into conflict, stress and anxiety get us to that elevated state. And you could have the most well-rehearsed, commonsensical, logical argument, but your partner or no one else is going to pay attention. So 7-Eleven is a way of reducing stress. It's a technique that they actually teach to first responders when they're about to confront a scene that can be quite challenging. Police use it, fireys use it. And the idea is that we can't hold opposing thoughts. Cognitive dissonance, you can't have opposing thoughts in your brain. We don't have that ability. You're either thinking about the stress piece or you're thinking about something else. And that something else is the 7-Eleven. So when you recognise what's going on in your body when you're starting to get stressed, you're starting to get anxious, whether it's knots in your stomach, tension in your shoulders, or a pain at the back of your neck, or the tension behind your eyes, you recognise, okay, I'm starting to get anxious here. Your breathing is becoming more rapid. Your pulse is getting faster. What do I have to do? 7-Eleven. What does 7-Eleven mean? Straight away, you've switched your thinking. 7-Eleven helps with regards to the breathing because you're taking control of your breathing. So you breathe in for the count of 7 and out for the count of 11. You breathe in through your nose both times, and you do that 3 times. You can do that while you're sitting down waiting to present. You can use that when you're walking into a room. You're switching your focus to your counting and your breathing. Not only have you got control of your breathing, it's not running away with you and becoming more and more rapid. So by controlling your breathing, you've slowed your heart rate down as well. You do that for the count for 3 times. And at that time, you should be more measured. And how many of you set goals in your relationship or your marriage? A couple. That's normally part of the course. Having a common goal or something that you can both work towards is a great way of bringing you together. And you can share those milestones that go towards that outcome. But be careful that when you do reach that outcome or that goal, that you celebrate it. Don't look for the next thing. Right, we've got there, what do we do next? Savour that, spend time in that. What have you gone without to actually get there? Spend time in that time. Setting goals in a relationship or your marriage is really important. Commitment. We make a commitment with one another when we get married, but we also make a commitment when we move in with one another. Try and honour that commitment. In the workshop, I get people to fill out a form and they can write their own commitments down. It's just that piece of paper that gives them something that they can refer to. Well, what about this? That ties into boundaries, standards that we live by, expectations, deal breakers, some of that unwritten stuff or unsaid stuff that when it comes to it, well, you never mentioned that. I didn't realise that. So in regards to commitment, you can write that in. So good relationships are building the future, not totally dependent on the past.